Barbecue. Hello and welcome to another Booze, Booze, and Barbecue. This is Andy. With me today, taking second chair, is Dakota Snow. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Thanks so much for being here and doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You've opened your home to me, and I always appreciate when people do that. You could have picked up a little bit, but whatever. It's fine. I joke. His house is immaculate, and everybody should feel very fortunate if they get invited over to his house. I am talking about you ladies here in Corvallis. So, Dakota, you are the marketing manager for Subaru Toyota of Corvallis, and actually the global brand of that company, are you not?
Yeah, so the brand is S&J Automotive Investments. Most people don't actually ever see that because that doesn't actually ever get marketed. The stores are the brand of the town they're in, so Subaru of Corvallis, Toyota of Corvallis, and then Toyota of Newport. And then Chrysler, Albany, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, I never get that one right, of Albany, formerly Mark Thomas Motors.
Yeah, I was wondering what the story was with that Mark Thomas thing. But
yeah, so we bought it out roughly a year ago or so.
I was a little bit sad to see that Hyundai's went because we got my wife a Hyundai Elantra. Mm-hmm. But, the car's been great and she loves it, and I haven't needed to bring it in for any service, so I guess we'll call it a wash.
There you go.
And I brought a beer over today. This is the Crux Half Hitch. This is an Imperial IPA. And I did it because when you and I were talking the other day, you mentioned how much you like and appreciate IPAs. That's kind of your go-to.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely is.
So how is this stacking up?
It's very good. So you can taste a little bit of hoppiness in there, but it's not so overly poweringly hoppy that you can't, drink it somewhat quickly. It's not, long sipping beer.
There's a lot of sweet balance to the hops, and I think that's probably because it is an Imperial. This is a 9% alcohol beer.
Oh, so it's on the low end.
It is. It's on the low end. As far as doubles go, typically you're looking at a much higher IBU. Mm-hmm. This one only comes in at 80. And so I find it's a nice balance of the sweetness and the hoppy. Mm-hmm. And you've got a lot of just the nice floral notes coming through that balance like a caramel note.
Yeah. It's a way better way of describing it than I ever could.
Well, you know how it goes. Some IPAs, it's like you're sticking a dandelion top in your mouth. And you're just like, ugh. I know some people are way into that. I am not one of those people that's into it.
I'd have to agree.
When I was getting a growler fill of this actually to bring over here, mm-hmm. I noticed that there was a pumpkin stout that mm-hmm. was on tap, and it took a lot of restraint for me to not get a growler of that instead. I'll be real honest, but you're the guest host, and so we went with your beer.
Appreciate it.
You got quite a shout out the other day on Instagram, by the way. I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah. It was probably 2 or 3 months ago, I posted that photo that I took of my 1995 Nissan 240SX. I'd taken actually at Portland Cars and Coffee. So it was the roll-up doors outside a World of Speed there. And it was a somewhat rainy day, and I took advantage of the low attendance that day to kind of park the car how I wanted it and took a nice photo. And I was trying to, I spent 2-3 hours in Photoshop trying to balance it and, Photoshop out this little chain that was bugging me, and put a lot of work into that photo. And it wasn't the greatest photo in the world, but I liked it. And so I posted it on Instagram, and very quickly afterwards, Nissan had liked it and then DM'd me saying, hey, can we repost this photo? And I'm like, wow, yeah, sure, go for it. I owned the car and took the photo. And I didn't hear anything for months. And so I was like, okay, well, that didn't go anywhere. And then I was sitting here at my desk one day, and I was getting some work done, and pop open my phone to go to Instagram, and I have 20 new followers and 13 comments and 6 DMs. I'm like, okay, what happened?
Yeah. They found your sex tape, buddy.
Something went wrong. So yeah, that was really cool to see. Super neat. It's a fun car, and it does get a lot of attention. But yeah, that was really cool to have Nissan want to post it. Oh, yeah.
And it's so weird. I mean this in the best of ways, but you got to understand, like, when I first started getting into cars, I was 14, 15, 16. Mm. I remember that Hondas were the big deal, right?
I've owned one, yes.
Yes. And Nissans weren't really on the radar too much. I mean, it sounds weird saying that now, but they really were not that far on the radar. I distinctly remember my cousin had an EG6 hatch. Mm-hmm. And we were looking at motors for it, and they were all $3,500 to import over. And we were looking at these SR20 engines that were $1,100 to import.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, what do you do with that? Oh, it's for some, trash can Nissan that nobody wanted. instead of a Miata is a hairdresser's car, these were the secretary's cars. I just remember passing right over it and not giving it a second thought. But then another subset of my friends all started buying into it, which was smart, by the way, looking back at it. And of course, they all started drifting. And I'm actually friends or was friends with the guys that really got Pat's Acres on board with the whole park drift and everything. It was kind of interesting watching that whole thing come up from this drift culture that was relatively unknown until, 2001.
And now, park is the drift mecca of the Northwest in a sense.
Oh yeah.
Everybody wants to come drift that track.
I've been on it a few times, and have you been on it yet?
I did a ride along. I have never driven it.
Oh, okay.
Myself,
yeah.
So
find some time to do a drive on it, especially like you said with World of Speed, the rainy day. Rainy days are the best time to go. Not only do you have the drift lube, as they call the rain, but there are not going to be as many people there because they're not going to get the smoke show, and it does change the dynamics. And the rainy days are just typically a little more geared towards, I feel like, the new people coming into the sport. And so it tends to be a better time. You get more track time. You don't have to worry about other people crashing into you. And
what I've always found with racing and stuff, I've done a lot of autocross. I always learned the most from the wet events as well, because you find the limit of your car at such a lower speed. You don't feel as risk taking when you're going harder in the rain, because you're like, oh, I'm doing 5 miles an hour, but I'm sideways. You learn so much more about the way your car handles and the way it's gonna behave when you do push it past the limit, which certainly when you translate into the dry, when you're going 10, 15 miles an hour faster, it really allows you to be able to carry those skill sets over. And so I know, like, when I first bought the 240, the first 6 autocrosses I did with it, which were basically the first 6 weekends after I bought it, were almost all wet events. And so, having never had more of a performance-oriented rear-wheel drive car before, it was the most educational 6 weeks I probably have ever had.
And you know what? You're absolutely right. It's the same reason why you look at like Team Continental and their drivers training series at Portland International Raceway. They have this lineup of older Toyota Camrys.
They all have the giant casters on them,
Exactly, yeah. They lift the car up a bit and they get them light on the tires because they want you to spin. They want you to feel where that limit is. And obviously, if you're in a car that has a very high limit, you are risking a lot more.
Yeah.
You're going a lot faster. And when it does go, it's going to go much more quickly. Whereas, if you're in the rain or if you're in something that's specifically set up for that, such as those Team Continental Camrys, the limit's so low and you can find it and you can react, and it just helps you to get a feel for what's going on.
Yeah, and especially if you have like a driver instructor with you, they can talk you through what you're feeling because you're going at such a slower pace with it all. They can talk you through, hey, do you feel the car pitching in this manner? Here's what you can do to correct that. And then, the next corner, you're taking it, you're going, and you can feel the car do exactly what they just said, and you're able to use what they're telling you to actually see how that relates. When I was first starting out autocrossing, I had a lot of drivers instructors and friends who had been autocrossing for a long time trying to help me out and to get faster. And having them ride along with me, especially on those wet days, and be able to tell me, hey, did you feel the car understeer here? Did you feel it oversteer here? Try turning the wheel in this manner. Try lifting the throttle here. Learning those little things translated to quicker lap times.
Yeah. And having those ride-alongs, the people that are there to show you those things, that is so infinitely beneficial.
Yeah.
There's no replacement for that kind of training.
Well, and it was funny. I remember an event that Willamette Motor Club did at Lynn Benton Community College. It wasn't last summer. I think it was the summer before. And one of my friends was like, hey, I noticed you're shifting from first to second at this corner. Try shifting one corner earlier. I did that and picked up a second and a half on my lap time.
Yeah.
And I thought I had it right. I thought I had the shift point right. But no, he was like, no, shift here. I did it, bogged a little bit more in second in the other corner where I was shifting, and just picked up a second and a half. And I was like, okay, wow.
Autocross especially, there's areas where that'll happen, where I remember a few different courses that I was on where the goal was essentially just to get into second or third gear as quickly as you could.
Yeah.
Because that was the gear you were going to stay in the entire course. And so it didn't really matter if you were trying to downshift, that was actually costing you time. But it didn't really matter if you were winding first gear all the way out. It was all about just trying to keep your momentum up.
Yeah.
That's what I love about go-karts. When you're doing the real actual go-kart racing, that feels a lot more closely related to autocross than anything else, because you're keeping that momentum up. You're not really playing with your brakes too much. If you're not on the gas, you're on the brakes. And if you're not on the brakes, you're on the gas. It's very, well, and obviously the course times are going to be a little shorter too.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about if you're running a shifter kart around Silverstone. That's something entirely different. But if you are at Pat's Acres, or if you are at,
Sidekart?
Sure, Sidekart. I was going to use one of the other tracks that the guys run on around here, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. It just feels like the people who are really fast in a go-kart can transfer that right over into an autocross car. Both hands on the wheel, gas and brake, the left foot braking, which is still something that I struggle with. I wish I could left foot brake better.
You know, I don't really left foot brake too much. Every once in a while, I'll notice that I'm getting off the throttle through a corner where I don't really want to be off throttle, but I need to brake. And that's when I'll try to recognize that and be like, okay, well, if I left foot brake here a little bit, just kind of help, rotate the car a little bit more. That's helped me quite a bit. And then working with just some of my friends who I know do left foot brake. Hey, where are you braking at? What are you doing when you're driving your car? And just listening to where they're at, and then just trying different ways of braking and trying to figure it out. The one thing, it's like my dirty little secret, I never actually quite learned how to heel toe properly. So I still can't really heel toe downshift very well. It's something I definitely want to work on, but I never actually really learned how to heel toe very well.
I spent a lot of time learning how to heel toe downshift, and I'll be real honest with you, I wish I'd spent the time learning how to left foot brake instead. Because it feels like it would be more beneficial in certain areas. I could be totally wrong. I do like heel toe downshifting, or actually, because of my size 14, 6E wide shoes, it's more like left side of the foot, right side of the foot, but
Yeah. No, I remember where I grew up, I lived up in the hills, and so there was a nice little mountain road I could go and drive on, and it was, nice and twisty, had a lot of undulations in the road and stuff, and so it was really fun for going and trying out new things, and especially when I bought my Acura Integra that I had and actually started trying to set it up for more racing purposes, being able to kind of have that as a little test track was a lot of fun, and, I learned a lot about lines and being able to just maintain momentum through corners, so that was a really useful thing to have growing up.
Yeah, I had exactly the same thing. I actually wrecked my car on one of those windy, twisty roads when I was, 17, 18, something like that.
I certainly got close a couple times.
Yeah, oh yeah. This was a little bit of a freak thing because I was fine. I was going slower than I normally would, but I found a big patch of water apparently, and I hydroplaned. It was like a double whammy because then my parents found out that I was, racing around on the roads. And I found out that even though I was going slower than I normally would, it was still too much. So it's interesting that you bring up the Integra. I remember your Integra. I've seen photos of it. That was a beautiful car. Did you notice that an Integra just went across the block?
Yeah, my Facebook blew up. I got tagged like 30 different times. And it was funny because about 4 or 5 years ago, I was talking to my friend Sam, and as you know, he, buys cars to kind of collect them and also wait for them to go up in value so he can kind of use them as investments. And I was telling him about 4 years ago, you could buy a Type R that had 50-ish thousand miles on it for 12-ish grand to like 16 grand, which was not a crazy price for what they were and the rarity of them. Now those are well into the 30s. Yep. And just the market on them has just absolutely exploded. And seeing that one, it was Concours d'Elegance status, 1,200 miles, pristine, but seeing, 60 some $1,000 be now the new top of the line is ridiculous.
I think it was 63,000 at Barrett Jackson. Yes.
Yeah. 63.8, I think it was, which is just insane. I mean, I know they didn't make a ton of them, but that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
Especially with like NSX prices are kind of in that $50,000 to $60,000 range too. Like seeing a Type R go for that money, it's nuts.
Well, I was having a conversation with my cousin the other day about this. We were trying to decide if we could have, as in someone was going to give us a car right now, would we have an NSX or would we have an S2000?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's not an easy one to answer because the S2000, I would argue that with the same amount of money put into it, it would be considerably faster than an NSX.
I think from a driver's standpoint, I think I would want to pick the NSX just because, looking at how it was developed and just everything that went into it, and it was supposed to be, the golden child of the performance Honda. I think just for the pure experience of owning and driving one, that's what I would go with. over an S2000.
And it really was. It was the golden child of like Japanese motoring for a little while there.
Oh, yeah.
I think in 93 or 94, people were considering that against some of the entry-level Ferraris because it was faster.
Oh, yeah. And then just the suspension design and everything they were doing with it was just leagues down the road from everybody else.
And it's amazing to me because doesn't that just have like a J32 in it?
Yeah, it's just a J-Series V6.
The same one that you'd find in an Accord or something.
Pretty much, yeah.
It was hopped up, obviously. But yeah, it's really interesting. That I feel like was kind of a turning point for Japanese vehicles. Not really a turning point, I guess I shouldn't say that, but it really brought Japanese performance to the forefront of the American mind. Mm-hmm. It had already been on the forefront of other people's minds. You know, the R32 Skyline had already dominated so many of the racing series. And so the Europeans knew about them. The Australians knew about them. Like they were a force to be reckoned with, but we didn't get any of those here. And when the NSX came around and people really started to recognize it, it was like, oh, wow.
Well, and
that's a Honda?
Kind of going back to the marketing thing, it's funny how Honda decided to market the NSX to the US. The whole entire Acura brand was built off of them launching the NSX for the United States market because, you know, us in the US, we like our shiny things and nice stuff. So couldn't have a Honda. It had to be an Acura. You know, they had to brand it so that us, you know, pretentious Americans would be okay with it.
All right. I'm dying to know, what are some of the issues that you've faced so far? You're kind of the new guy in this. You have a degree in communication. You had an eye or a mind towards marketing anyways. So I've been really curious to know, what are some of the tools that business like that, a car dealership, right? I mean, that's as old as time. Car dealerships are as old as cars, right? And so we're in this, it doesn't feel like a new age to anyone who's under 24 years old that's listening to us. But with all of the social media marketing that's going on, are you finding it challenging to keep relevance, or is it just one of those things where it doesn't matter how many TrueCars or Autotrader.coms there are, people are still going to want that dealership experience?
You know, it's an interesting question, and I watch a lot of videos on this, and I pay attention to a lot of the webinars and stuff that they have on this kind of topic. And it's interesting because everyone talks about experience. It's all about the experience people have. Which means you can see that in a lot of different ways. So many people these days would rather go and pay to go racing than go and watch a race.
Right.
So many people, they want to be involved. They don't want to just be a spectator. And so when it comes to buying a car, people don't want to just sit back and watch everything else kind of happen. They want to be in control of what they're doing. And that doesn't mean, you know, just on price and just on everything else. They want to feel like they are the most important person that has ever stepped foot in that dealership. You know, and everybody kind of they feel a little bit better when they get pampered. But it is all about experience and how we can make things as simple and easy, because especially with a dealership, we're up against the grain when it comes to reputation. There's so many people out there like, oh, don't go to the Steelership, you know, they'll rip you off. And there are dealerships out there like that, but it's an unfortunate kind of mark that most reputable dealers have to kind of go against and try to battle against that negative reputation that's always been there. Right. So it's about just trying to provide the highest level of customer service that they can, and being able to do that in a manner where people feel seamless with what they do. We're just another part of their day. We're like if they had to go to Safeway to pick up some milk or something. It's an easy stop for them to do. It's no hassle. And that's, you know, the ultimate goal at the end of the day is just make it an easy thing that has to, you know, it's one of those things, you got to service your car. You got to change your oil. If we can make it, oh, hey, no, they got my car at the dealership. It was done. It was easy. Didn't throw my day off at all. That's, you know, the ultimate goal is just make it super simple for people.
Well, it's the same thing that Dennis Weisco says on his podcast, the Wisco Weekly podcast. He's all about the customer experience. I just happen to be a bi-monthly contributor to that podcast, so make sure you go and check that out, the Wisco Weekly podcast. But he is all about the customer experience, and he has a ton of guests through there that are owners of dealerships, that are wholesale buyers and sellers, that are people who've been in the industry for years and years. And everything you're saying is stuff that really comes up quite often on his show. They talk about how they've been able to be so successful because when people come in, they don't feel like they're being attacked. They've got the complimentary coffee and they've got the comfy sofa to sit on, and they don't try to really harangue or hassle anybody. And so if somebody comes in looking for a car, they go, hey, here's kind of the base model of that car. Here are the versions of that we have on our lot with these options, and here's how much these options cost. And this seems like something that I just continually hear from all of these really successful dealerships, is that they're moving to a model where it's almost like they're acting like Google. People come in.
Effectively, yeah. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. People come in and the salesman just goes, okay, so here's what you're looking at. Here are the options that are available. This is how it affects the price. Here's some kickbacks or manufacturer rebates or whatever. And then you just kind of go through the process like that. And it feels almost curated. You know what I mean?
No, it 100% is. So one of the big things that they talk about every week, we have a sales meeting. And the big thing they always talk about is know your product. Because when it comes down to it, you are supposed to be, as a salespeople, you're supposed to be the experts in this. And so anybody could go online and do their research into it. Anybody could go and watch a million YouTube videos. You know, the internet's a wonderful place for doing research. But being able to see these things in person, you know, there's a certain experience of being able to touch and feel and have that kind of experience interacting with it that you can never have online. Now, for most people, they're like, oh God, I got to talk to a salesperson. This is going to be painful. And so what the dealerships that I work for, what they strive to do is they try to make it where someone walks in and all your purpose as a salesperson is to just provide the information, just help land them on the car that they really want and that really works for them. So especially at the Toyota and the Subaru dealership I work for, the salespeople there, their entire job is you're there to help the customer figure out what they want. And like, you're not trying to sell them a car. You're just trying to help them find the car that they want. And it's the sales managers that do all the numbers and everything else. So the salespeople are actually not even commission based. They're salary based, which I think puts a lot of people at ease because they're not feeling as attacked. But yeah, it's the big focus is on your knowledge, your product knowledge. The more you know about the product you're working with, and the more, you know, you can just rattle off all this information and be able to point stuff out to people, it's going to save them more time in the long run because they could do hours and hours of research to learn what you were able to teach them in a half hour. And,
exactly.
You know, I think back, it's ridiculous the amount of information I know about a Toyota Highlander, for example. I know the most random information about it, and it's stuck in my brain now. I don't know if I'll ever get rid of it.
You know, you got to be careful because that stuff takes up valuable room. You probably forgot some of your college courses.
Probably,
yeah. No, it's funny. And it's good because we're seeing kind of a renaissance in these dealerships because we're now moving back into what they were in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, where they're a fixture in the community. And you're seeing these dealerships start to pop up as sponsors for things now. And donations are being made in the name of the dealerships. And there's a connection to the community that's starting to happen again. And I do feel like that had gotten lost there for a while.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people felt that way. You didn't feel like you were looking at a dealership like it was a farmer's market or something. But now we're starting to shift that back. The salespeople are local. The manager's local. It's got a name on the front that you recognize because you know, went to high school with their parent or whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But there seems to be kind of this almost grassroots movement back into dealerships because of all this, where now that you have people that care about something more than just making the sales, you have people who care about providing the best service to their community because they love their community.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. You know, traditionally, the automotive industry was very much a money-driven world. Still is in many rights. But like you said, there is that focus on community and building the value into you as the store. You know, and like you said, the fixture in the community. So, for example, the stores I work for, we donate money to local schools' music programs to help fund that. We just donated a bunch of books to a local elementary school that were all STEM-related books. We do all these different, we do like toy drives when it comes around Christmas time. We're about ready to do a food drive for families in need. So there's a lot of stuff that we do just because, not because we have to, because it's the right thing to do. And if you're going to be a big part of the community that you want to live in and work in and have a business in, then you should give back to that community. And so the more that we can say, hey, like, we're doing this not because it makes fiscal sense. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do, then that's good for us just because it is the right thing to do at the end of the day. But then, from a strategic marketing standpoint, it does build a better relationship with the community because, again, we have to overcome some of those old reputational issues that many people have with dealerships.
There are paradigms that we've developed. It seems like people are coming out of the womb knowing that they shouldn't trust dealerships.
It really does feel that way sometimes.
You're trying to regain some of that, and I'm going to use the big bad word of consumerism. However, we are in a time right now where, even though a lot of people don't feel like it, you are doing real well. And I mean you as in us, all of us. We're all doing real well in this country, and we're all very blessed to be here and be born here. And the fact of the matter is, we may find ourselves in a situation where we can buy a new car every couple, 3 or 4 years. And if the same dealership has treated us well for 2 of those cars, I mean, think of it this way. A lot of people are leasing vehicles right now, right? Leases run 2, 3, 4 years typically. Yes. If you had a good experience when you leased your first car, who are you going to lease your second car from?
Exactly.
And over the span of 10 years, let's say you live in an area for 10 years and you're leasing a car every 3 years, there's the potential of 3 or 4 cars passing through that dealership. And that's strictly because the customer is being treated well every time they come in. And so it's a real give and take. And it's good to see dealerships but going back to a format like that.
Well, and they, the sales managers preach that. Our general manager does as well. They preach, take care of your customers and your customers will take care of you. You're not just selling them a car, you're building a relationship with them. And so, we got to kind of become experts at speed dating in a sense when you're a salesperson, because you have to be able to find a way to connect with people really quickly. But if you can do that and do it successfully and be able to stay on top of, meeting what they want in terms of their needs and everything, like you said, they're going to come back to you. They're going to send their friends back to you. Their friends are going to say, hey, I need a new car. I got a guy. And then there you go. You got somebody coming in to talk to you because you took care of them so well. They want you to be able to take care of their friends. So it's certainly a big thing in the industry these days. It's funny. It reminds me, there's a guy who works at a car dealership in Albany that I actually sold a car to. He's also a salesperson. And he basically works completely on referral because he's worked at the same place for 10 plus years and everybody knows him. Big Dan. You go to Big Dan to buy a car. That's just what you do. And so everybody knows him. And it's funny because I have 2 friends that have gone and bought a car from Big Dan. How? One of their friends told them about him.
Interesting.
And so I thought that was really funny that he's become such a pillar in the area that everyone who's ever thought about buying a car in Albany might have heard of Big Dan. And for him, it's huge, huge business.
And you can't get to that level by screwing people over.
No, not at all. I mean, a reputation takes a lifetime to build and a second to destroy.
That's right.
And so, if you become so highly rated like that, you've obviously built an extremely good reputation. And it was funny working from the other side of it, having him be the customer and me be the salesperson when I sold him his car. And that was an interesting experience for me because I was still relatively new at the time.
And I bet you'll look back at that though as one of the more valuable moments you had.
It really was. Yeah. Talking with him about it and just, he gave me a bunch of different advice on it. And, it's funny that month that I sold him that car, it was actually ended up being my best month I ever had doing sales. And so getting to work with someone like him who has been in that situation countless times over, 30 plus times a month and, hearing what he had to say, it was really, really informative.
I'm kind of envious of people like that. I used to do sales and I was good at it and I feel like I had a pretty good reputation with folks. But the people who can just sort of seamlessly lean into it like that, that takes a very special type of person. There's 2 type of people like that. There's the person who's charismatic enough to get away with it, but then they don't care about the back end.
Yeah.
And then you have the people who do care and they're charismatic simply because they really do care about you and what your needs are.
Yeah, it's genuine. And I mean, people can see through fake pretty easily. If you put on a fake smile, they're going to see right through it. So you do have to be genuine. You have to come at it from, hi, I'm so-and-so. What can I do for you today? And, if they don't want you to do anything, you step back. You don't try to push. You just don't, you go at whatever pace they want to set. Because the moment you start trying to push something on them, people are going to shut down. They recognize fake. They recognize people trying to push you into something. People are actually pretty smart when it comes to that. And so as the salesperson and as now doing marketing, it's an interesting world to try to work in because people recognize that stuff.
Right, because I was going to say, how does that now translate into what you do with the marketing? Because we've well established now what it is you need to sell and establish a good customer relationship, right? Now, how do you translate those items into marketing? Let's say online marketing, for example.
So it'd be the same thing, being genuine. There's a good law. I can't remember where, I think I read it online somewhere, but it's the law of 2 feet. And if you are not teaching somebody something or not entertaining them, they will use their own 2 feet and go somewhere else. And I always thought that. I always thought that was a really good one, because it means that, you need to be strategic with everything that you do. And so, you want to, whether your intent is, we need to move this specific car, man, we've had it forever, we need to move this, or it's, we just want to be able to connect with people. You got to have some sort of strategic intent with what you're doing. You as a content creator, to create content for no reason is worthless. It's a waste of your own time. And so the more that you can be very, very strategic with what you're doing, then you're going to see more benefit of it long term.
Well, I wish you'd told me that like 3 months ago.
So it's interesting, always trying to keep that. I have a sticky note on my desk that says, what is the strategic intent? Is it worth the time? And what's the potential return on investment? And if the return on investment is people are happy, that's always the funnest stuff to work with. At the end of the day, yeah, you got to meet bottom lines and stuff, but making people happy is, really what it comes down to. That I found joy in working in the automotive industry, especially in sales. It was great when you made money on a car, but if the customer walked away and you're like, man, that was a stressful deal, I hated having to work with that, but hey, I made $500 on it. It made you feel better about it. But the best ones were, it didn't matter how much money you made. You made the people happy. That was the biggest part that I loved about sales, was when I did have those ones where I made these people happy and they were, hugging me because we didn't think we could get a car. You guys were amazing. Those are the best ones to work with. And so it's fun getting to work. So one of the things that we do at Toyota is we do a free gas Friday. So we post online a little thing and just, you guess a number. So Price is Right rules, closest without going over wins. And every Friday, I go to last week's post. I pick a random number, go through and see who was closest. And it's funny seeing how just something as simple as a free tank of gas can affect somebody's life.
Oh, yeah.
Our general manager has come to me, hey, is this worthwhile doing? I'm like, yes, it is 100% worthwhile doing, because it's $40 to $60 or so. But there was one gal who she won, and it was her birthday. And she was very, very, she came in, she had her birthday hat on. She was so excited about winning just a free tank of gas. She was hugging everybody. She was just ecstatic. We had another gal who she's like, I've been playing this game because we've been doing it for ages. She's like, I've been playing and I finally won. And so just seeing the joy that people have with doing that kind of thing, and the fact that people get so excited about it, and you're making someone's day when you're doing something super simple. That's the funnest part of my job, is getting to work with those people and meet them.
I feel like I know exactly what you're talking about, because we've done a few giveaways here. We've had a lot of fun doing it. Our latest giveaway was some barbecue sauce from Best Damn Barbecue Sauce. Mike White, Best Damn Barbecue Sauce. You're the man. We had a fella, his Instagram handle was Puns versus Food. Super cool guy, and was very excited to win. And it was fun being able to just share that out.
Yeah. And it's fun when you can share, specifically in that case, you can share, a shared passion that you have. The funnest part of my job is when I can get people excited. And so looping back kind of to, social media marketing, one of the things we're doing right now is we had a Toyota RAV4 that was wrapped to look like it has donuts all over it. And one of the things that we're doing is anybody can go online for the next 2 months and nominate someone to receive donuts. And it's simply because they were kind or they deserve it. They're nice to people. And so it's all about, if someone's been really nice or they're just a kind person and they don't really get the recognition that they deserve, nominate them. Maybe we'll bring them a dozen donuts.
That's awesome.
And so it's super fun stuff like that I really enjoy getting to do. Kind of from an experience, from a marketing standpoint, that would really fall under experiential marketing, and the more you can get people involved and the more that you can be a participant, whether it's in your local community or anything that you're doing, the more connected that you feel to the world around you. And so for us as a dealership, we want to be more connected to the community because it's where we live, because we want to give back to the place that we're trying to provide value to.
And you're doing those specific giveaways to your community, which I love, because the donuts, somebody's going to need to be local to get those. The tank of gas, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah. It's giving back to the local community because they've given us so much as a business. We wouldn't make money if it wasn't for people in the area. So, we're going to take care of the people that have taken care of us.
That's fantastic, man. Where can people go to see kind of your work, your handiwork, and
my personal handiwork? For my day job, business-related stuff, you'd go to toyotaofcorvallis.com or subaruofcorvallis.com would be the two main ones. And then all the associated social medias, again, would be Toyota of Corvallis, Subaru of Corvallis.
Well, I highly recommend that people go and check those out.
Yeah. And we've got links everywhere for the I can't remember exactly what we named it, but it's the Be Kind RAV4 where you can win donuts. So
I love hearing that. I love hearing it all about your experience doing that. And I love hearing that you guys are doing that in the community. It's something that communities desperately need. Mm-hmm. And I really do appreciate that. So we've covered the booze portion. We've covered the boost portion. Now I got to ask you some questions about barbecue. Are you barbecue man?
I am. Yeah.
What is your go-to?
So I like to, I host probably 2 parties a year. I enjoy hosting a party. Going to a party, fine, whatever. I love hosting a party. So I always throw a big Christmas party every year, and then I throw a party kind of middle of the summer. And, I'm very simple. I'm a lot like Ron Swanson. I cook a very mean hamburger, and it's pretty basic, but I cook a wicked hamburger.
Have you gotten into any of the smoked meats, or are you still just sticking with your grill?
You can see my barbecue setup out the back window there. It's still really basic, so I do work with what I can. My parents have a little bit nicer barbecue setup, so I've gotten pretty good at barbecuing steak and been trying a couple different ways of preparing them and searing them and doing all stuff like that. So it's fun to get to experiment with that when I can when I'm out at my parents' house.
I need to find a way to get you into the smokers, man. I mean, I am a deal hunter. Anybody that listens to the show knows I am a deal hunter, and I need to find you a smoker. I think I'm going to make that a personal mission of mine from here on out. Have you ever tried doing a long smoke on anything?
I haven't, no.
Oh, see, you're primed, you're set, you're ready. It's going to be like getting your 240SX all over again. All right. So speaking of the 240SX, I have got an amazing smoking dealer smoking a doob here. I believe I sent you a link. Were you able to see that?
Yes.
1972 Honda Z600 Coupe, which typically I love microcars. Mm-hmm. And so typically I would be all over this thing. And it's not even that bad of a price for a true microcar. It's $3,000. But then you move on to the second photo and you will notice that someone has been watching a little bit too much Mad Max.
Yeah.
We have a hood scoop, a big hood scoop. And what does that say on the side? 351 cubic inch?
Something like that. Yeah, it looks like it was pulled right off of like a 70s Dodge Challenger.
Nope, excuse me. It says 36.4 cubic inch. Big tubular bumper. Looks like fake side pipes. He's also lifted the back of it. Wow. Yeah, man. I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to buy this car just to rescue it, and then there's a part of me that wants to buy it just to put it out of its misery. What say you?
I dig the originality of it. Because, I mean, first off, you don't see that old generation of Honda very often. So for someone like me who knows what they are, that would turn my head to begin with. But for the average person, they're just going to walk right by it. But yeah, having stuff like that to make it look like kind of, that classic 70s, 80s muscle car into a micro car. I love the juxtaposition that they have going on with it all.
See, I'd feel a lot better about it if it had like a Gixxer 1000 motor in the back or something. Mm-hmm. That would make me feel a lot better about it.
I think it does need some sort of beefy engine in there to give it a little bit of grunt to kind of go along with the styling that they've given it.
This one is not necessarily beefy. It has the overhead cam 2-cylinder, which is 598 cc's. It's air-cooled. 31 horsepower is what it came with from the factory. It has a 4-speed manual. I got to tell you, I love these. Again, I have an affinity for microcars. Mm-hmm. I do. And so I'm looking at this thing going, man, I know I could do something with this. I'm just not quite sure about that $3,000 price point.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, especially with someone putting kind of their own custom flair on it. If it was completely stock, totally. But with their own kind of custom flair to it, I don't think that adds any value. Maybe to the right buyer, but I think that it's certainly a unique car, and you could do a lot of stuff with it. If I bought it, I immediately would take the hood scoop and the side pipes off myself. But no, it's a super cool, very unique car, and you certainly wouldn't see another one around. And if you did, you'd be probably at a meet specifically for those. Yeah, very, very neat car, though, and you could certainly build something very unique out of it.
like the fork with no tines. Sometimes being unique is not helpful.
Very true.
I am going to say begrudgingly Smoking a Doob because I really do love these cars. I just cannot justify the $3,000 price point looking at the thing. Mm-hmm. What say you?
I'd have to agree with you on that one, yeah.
All right, folks. Let us know what you think in the comments. We'll, of course, have this up on the Facebook page, facebook.com/BoostBoostBBQ, and on the website, boostboostbbq.com. We'll have photos of it, a link to the ad. Use the hashtag #SmokinDeal or the hashtag #SmokinADoob, and let us know what you think. Dakota, where can we find your social, brother?
So you can find me a couple different places. So on Instagram is kind of my main one for posting photography and stuff of cars, and it's at Dax Ahoy, and then also at Time Attack Hack. A couple different pages I run. Those would probably be the best places to find me.
Love that. TimeAttackHack.com is kind of my go-to place when I'm just surfing the internet and I want to see what's going on. I head on over there. Dakota's got some really great articles that he's written. The photos are incredible. This guy's got some serious photo skills. So make sure you are going over and checking that out. And while you're doing that, make sure you're going and checking us out at BoostBoostBBQ is our handle on the Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter, any other social media that you have. Actually, we don't have. So just use those three. Also, boostboostbbq.com. Don't forget to go and check out Pardon My Fork, the all-new show that we're doing. Strictly food. We're gearing up for the World Food Championships in November. That is going to be a hoot and a half. So keep your eyes open for that. Dakota, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
And as always, we will see you next time. Boost, Booze and Barbecue.